Who's coaching for their jobs, do you think, this weekend?
Well, I would start with Ron Rivera, and I don't think in Ron's case it's a matter of coaching for his job because at this point everything seems to be trending toward major changes in Washington, including moving on at the head coach position. I mean, we all know what Ron dealt with, especially his first 3 years at the helm, where he was the de facto head coach, general manager, team spokesperson, owner in a lot of cases because Daniel Snyder didn't do a single interview for like 10 years there. Obviously, this year, Josh Harris comes in, and that eased some of the burden on Ron to do other things. But they've lost 7 games in a row. They're 0-5 against the division, and you've got Josh Harris, who has shown, based upon his other pro sports endeavors, has an ability to attract and to recruit and identify high-level coaches and general managers. So with Ron, again, they haven't finalized anything. I know they've been meeting this week, but you would certainly anticipate, again, everything's trending towards Ron being out.
Mm-hmm.
There's other ones that are a little bit more murky. You obviously have decisions that need to be made in New England. Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, as we've been talking about on game day morning for a couple of weeks, still have not met. My understanding is they've had no substantive discussions whatsoever. You would anticipate that's going to happen after the game on Sunday, whether that's Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in the coming days here. They're going to meet. And it's not as simple as, or it may not be as simple as, hey, Bill, thanks for everything. Here's your gold watch. You can go and coach whoever. There's the possibility here that they could try to work out a compensation to move on from Bill Belichick. There's a possibility that they could offer him a revised structure in front office, the coaching staff, which Bill then could decide whether or not he's willing to accept that. And there's certainly a possibility that they could just work things out and it's a mutual parting of some kind, but it may not be a completely clean thing on Monday here with the greatest coach that a lot of us have ever seen in the NFL. And a guy that, while I think that there have been, rumors and things that you hear through the grapevine, or you see certain people post on social media about he's got this done deal, he's got that done deal. I can tell you this, Rich, there's no done deal right now with Bill Belichick. But when a guy like that becomes available, you have to not just look at the jobs that are open or are going to open come Monday, maybe even jobs that aren't open, and some owners who might be looking at the opportunity to get a guy who's won 300 plus games in the short term with a team that can win right now. A lot of moving parts still at play there. In terms of, coaching for your jobs, I think that you're moving on, to places like Atlanta. And, we talked about it last week. At that point, it would be a surprise if Arthur Smith is not back as the Falcons coach for year 4, just based upon the undertaking that they had with the roster, with the cap, with everything else. However, Arthur Blank has left the door open in multiple media interviews saying, hey, let's see how these last 2 games go. Well, the Falcons, I don't want to say they didn't show up, but they didn't play well last week in Chicago. Now this week, they still have something on the line, amazingly enough. If they beat the Saints and somehow the Bucs were to lose to the Panthers, the Falcons win the division and they're in the playoffs. So we have to see how that game goes. Similarly, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there's been no indication in recent weeks that the Bucs are looking to move on. Having said that, the Glazers are very private about these things. They usually move swiftly the night of or the day after the final game. If the Bucs, who need to win one of these final 2 to win the division and get in, manage to lose to the worst team in the NFL on Sunday, I think it's fair to say that you could potentially have changes in Tampa as well. And that's not even getting into, Rich, some of the teams that may have some question marks if they don't advance far enough in the playoffs. There's a lot of different things that can play out here. It's possible we only get answers on 1 or 2 of them come Monday. But as we've seen in recent years here, there are always some of those aftershock types of moves that become possible. And with the way that the NFL has legislated things this year in terms of delaying in-person interviews with any NFL personnel for 2 weeks for head coaching jobs, we well may be sitting there in Las Vegas the first, second week of February and not having answers on who's taking a bunch of these jobs.
How about New Orleans? Is he coaching for his gig or no? That's not the case.
We'll see. They're a unique setup there. Obviously, Gail Benson took over for her husband. They've been a place that's had a lot of stability for a long time. Mickey Loomis has been the GM there a long time. Sean Payton could have probably coached there as long as he wanted to. He needed a breath. Now he's in Denver. With Dennis Allen, Rappaport and I reported last week, at this point, there's no signs that New Orleans will be looking to move on. They probably are going to make changes. It may well be on the offensive side of the ball because that's been a big point of frustration. And they got a lot to do in terms of their roster. I know everybody always jokes, the cap is a myth in that. Well, the Saints have like $320+ million, I think, in 2024 cap commitments on the books right now. You can restructure things, you can flip things over, but at some point it does impact what you can do. So how big of a line do they take in terms of trying to move on from some of those things, and maybe be in a little different position, get younger, because they got more guys over age 30 than anybody in the NFL. These are all things that have to play out here, but no signs as of this moment, right now, Friday, January 5th, that they're going to be changing head coaches in New Orleans.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.